Welcome to Public Safety Talk Radio, the podcast for all of our heroes in public safety, including law enforcement professionals, firefighters, EMTs, corrections officers, healthcare workers, and more. The show is produced by the POCUA and is founded upon its Soundness Initiative. This episode is sponsored by the Finest Service Organization, a provider of line-of-duty death loan protection through many of our POCUA institutions. And now for part 2 of work-life balance for first responders. So, let's go back a couple of steps. How did you, you're a talented individual. You got a PhD a couple weeks ago, so, all BS aside, I've agreed with everything that you said and we're on the same page and I like where you're going. Your talents could have been used in any sector and certainly apply to, people that work in an executive office, people that are working in a high school and so forth, about work-life balance. But you've chosen to focus on first responders and those professionals. How did you get involved specifically in helping first responders with work-life balance?
I fell into it. That's what it was.
We got honesty. We got honesty on the show.
I wrote a book called Lead with Balance in 2016, and it was what work-life balance meant to me as an executive. I've been president of various companies and started startups, ran small businesses for others, and in a career, and I lived a life what I called was balance, because I actually focused on faith, family, career, and health. And then later I went and studied it in my PhD, but I wrote this book beforehand. And in 2016, a great guy named Matt Vinci, he was the director of education for the International Association of Firefighters. And he was in Washington, DC, and he read my book. And then he contacted me on LinkedIn and he said, you know what? We're thinking about getting some workshops for our annual training that we do, one in Anaheim or at Disney there, and one in Orlando. They switch back and forth each year for it's for their union officials. Huge conference and all this. And so he interviewed me. He goes, hey, how would you set up a workshop? And I shared with him my strategies and all that of how I do a workshop. So they hired me. So I go to Anaheim, Disney, for the first time, never presented before in front of firefighters. And I walked into this room, and to my surprise, there were 200 firefighters in the room. So it was basically full capacity.
Yeah. Well, that would be great if you all of a sudden have a heart attack. You got plenty of people that can help you. Yeah.
And I thought I might I have 200 people staring at me. It was interesting. And so I put on this 3-hour workshop, and it went very well, to say the least. It went very well. And then some people there like, hey, could you come out to my department and do some training? So then it started. That started building. One thing led to another. It bled over into law enforcement, and then it over to other high stressful occupations such as attorneys. It spilled over into that, healthcare workers, and so forth. But I'm also an Army National Guard veteran, and my son's an Army veteran, 82nd Airborne guy. Now he's a firefighter. So just working with that first responders, it's truly my makeup as well, looking, so it's just been a great fit for that. And plus I got to see how well both firefighters and law enforcement, they want training. They accept the training. They're great to have in a classroom because they actually follow instructions and don't wander off and do different weird stuff, like some professional organizations, stuff like that. So they're great. And the other thing is that they need help. They really, really need help. And so it's quite an honor for me to be out there helping them. And I'll give you the icing on the cake of this is that where I grew up I grew up in a very poor area in apartment complexes, went K through 12 schools, spent my whole age 5 to 17 in these apartments, and, had friends that were killed, children murdered, all kinds of terrible stuff.
Yeah.
And in the summertime, I'd see firefighters and law enforcement down in the apartments, 4 or 5 times a day, coming down.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget always looking up to them thinking, wow, those are the people I want to be like, stuff like that. And it's such of a privilege that decades later and through many iterations of my career, who am I standing in front of working with? It's those same people. So it's quite rewarding for me. Truly is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And it's a great story. Yeah, as you're speaking, a question kind of came to my head is you work with these different professions in the first responder industry, I'll say, probably not the best way to put it. Is stress the same or different? And do we attack it? Do we try to alleviate it in different ways? And just, for example, when we kind of hit on this a little bit earlier in this episode, is that the job of a firefighter and a police officer are both tough, but very different. And, I've explained to some people, I've never been a firefighter or police officer, but I've had the privilege to work with enough of them where I know the differences in the job. Is it seems like the police officer, even when he's off duty or he or she's off duty, I know these folks where they make sure if they go to a restaurant, they sit near the wall, they know, they see, they see the front door, they know where the exits are, they want to be able to be aware of everything. And that's got to be, a really heightened sense 24/7. Whereas a firefighter, don't get me wrong, when, you've got, 15 people in a burning building, you gotta move, you gotta save these people. That's a high stress situation, maybe even a higher stress situation than just this above surface level anxiety that a police officer has. But at the same time, I know from talking to my firefighter friends, if there's no life endangerment in a building and the building's just on fire, it becomes a very easy type of operation. It's like, all right, there's no life in danger. Let's protect our lives. Let's surround it. Let's do this. It's a very process oriented type of job. So from that point, stress is obviously different for the different first responder professions. Is there a catch-all, this is what we do with stress, or because it's different type of stress, we need to approach it in the solution in a different way?
No, you're bringing up some great questions on that. And I'm not.
Every once in a while I do that. That's why I got a podcast.
There's a needle in a haystack all the time.
Yeah. What is that? A blind squirrel can find a nut? Never mind.
There you go. But there are some great, there's a great guy named Dr. Rich Gasway. He teaches within a lot of the firefighter community situational stress, and I mean truly a master at it. And his PhD, he's former fire chief, but his PhD's in that, and comes up with some great information. But talking about the different situational stressors, because now it's just like as a law enforcement, if they're going into a house that they know is confrontational or anything like that, or making a confrontational arrest. I mean, obviously all the chemicals, the hormones, everything's kicking in. Same thing entering into a burning building, so it's sometimes it's not, it's going from 0 to 100 rapidly, and very tough on the body. Now, they do have differences, such as, one thing that a lot of times we don't think about, but we're learning more and more about, is that the heat exhaustion, and just the actual, the body temperature going up, and what that does over a long haul when it comes to firefighters. Law enforcement don't necessarily have that type of piece. Or cancer amongst firefighters, is because the things that are burning in the last couple decades, many decades at this point, It's just not the natural wood and fibers, it's all the plastics and chemicals. So there's so much more, not that immediate danger, but it's like, it's part of the job now to do, to wash off properly, and decontaminate and do all of that. Again, law enforcement, they don't have that yet. Most firefighters are not getting return fire from a weapon.
Right.
And I say most because they are starting to get injured.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And having a SWAT firefighter crew, that actually are wearing bulletproof vests on scenes, that's new lately. So, there's starting to be a little crossover there, but the stresses are different, but the way it's handled, if you think about in most professions, the way a lot of this stress is handled in a negative manner sometimes is that, do we cope with alcohol? Do we cope with drugs? Do we cope? Yes, it is, so there's a lot still yet to learn, yet there's so much good stuff out there. The more and more we start practicing and sharing what's working well, again, trying to focus on some of this practical things that's working so good, it's helping. And I think we're starting to see the needle turn a little bit on this.
Yeah. Now a word from one of the POCUA's proud business partners, OfficerPrivacy.com. OfficerPrivacy.com was founded by Pete James, a law enforcement professional with over 25 years of experience. Pete wanted to find a way to help law enforcement officers protect themselves and their families. So he formed a team to create a way to quickly identify and remove their information from certain sites. OfficerPrivacy.com is the result. This service is already offered through a select few of our POCUA organizations. As a listener of Public Safety Talk Radio, you can take advantage of a special offer from OfficerPrivacy.com. Go to OfficerPrivacy.com/POCUA, and when you sign up, you'll get 2 additional bonuses. In addition to removing your personal information from the top 30 people search sites, they will give you your first 2 months of monitoring free. This is a value of $39.98. In addition to that, you'll receive a cell phone privacy device, a $19.99 value. This prevents data from leaving your cell phone when you use public charging stations and is a must when traveling. So go to officerprivacy.com/POCUA today to take advantage of this offer and to protect your privacy. Organizations who are members of the POCUA and are interested in offering the service directly to their members, contact us at POCUA@btcinc.org. Yeah, great answer and great segue to one of my last questions as we begin to wrap up here, Doc.
We haven't gone 2 hours yet, Ken. What's going on?
Well, you got a whole move going on over there. I hear you're moving 1,000 miles away or something like that, 900.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that there's, and I'm so enjoying talking to you because this is such a deep and broad subject, frankly. But yeah, if there was a number one tip, if an individual firefighter, police officer, whoever it is in chaos, in obvious stress and in work life imbalance, is there a number one tip? Is there something that you would give to her or him to say, what? Why don't you at least try this? It's not a silver bullet, but if you do this number one tip, this will at least help you immediately and a little bit in the short term.
Wow. There's not a magic bullet.
Yeah.
And if things are completely out of control, if the barn's burning, seek out a culturally competent therapist or coach. Mm-hmm. That would be a good tip. And I mean, culturally competent, is truly what you're experiencing, what you've going through and have gone through. If a coach or a therapist is not aware or used to treating firefighters or law enforcement, you'll put them in tears, literally. Mm-hmm. So seek out someone that knows how to work with this. That's a big thing. If the barn's not burning, get educated on this stuff. I don't, here's a shameless plug, right? I mean, I have online courses that, I have live workshops where I love doing, right? But I've taken a live workshop and turned it into individual courses. It's because it's really just, that pause, just pause in life to say, how are things going in my life, my current reality, and all the roles you do, work, family, health, all different types of health. How do I want things to be? And how can I get there? And that's really, and I encourage people to, you're not going to go from 0 to 100 on this, but you know what could you do today? What one thing could you do today to make things better? And it could just be that phone call back to your spouse during the day, or a text to your kids, or you have kids in college, just put them, say something kind to them, get them, at the evening, send them a text that, or if you're on shift, right, or you're running the graveyard shift as law enforcement, texting your kids, even if they're young, when they're 3 years old, they get their first phone. So
I thought the phone came, as soon as they popped out of the womb. But today,
I understand that's part of your healthcare education you're starting to do, right?
Yeah. It's like, well, you're leaving the hospital, you need a baby seat and the starter cell phone. So
absolutely. But that positive, going back to that positive psychology, right? That kind, loving, just little text message. Hey, thinking of you. Hopefully, had a great, early evening. I hope you get a good night's sleep. I'll see you in the morning. Just that little type stuff. Those things really go a long way, because we know how it is. If, when we're on the job, and quite frankly, any job, but it's so heightened for first responders. It's a different element. I can screw up a workshop and I can recover. If I'm a first responder and I screw up, I may not be recovering.
Right.
So, but even so, for me to be on my A game, I want things to be really good back at home, or I don't want that horrible, preventable disease to pop up because I haven't been taking care of myself, or, and the other thing is, if someone is, that you mentioned, like if they're anxious and they're sort of, what do I do now? I guess now that I'm thinking about this answer for you, since we didn't script anything.
I remember sending you the question just for the audience. It's right here.
Go get a good workout. Force yourself to go do it. I don't care what it is. Go get some exercise, because we know we will think more clearly and we'll be more calm and we'll make better decisions after a 45-minute workout.
Yeah. All great advice. In I loved it all, but one thing that I really picked up on, which I think is perfect advice, is to ask yourself the question, how do you want things to be? And how do I get there? I know from my own personal struggles, as well as some work with other folks, that sometimes just asking the question, it changes your mindset into, let's not be upset about how things are. How do you want it to be? And how do you get there? It's, as a side note, I heard of a particular organization that does an awesome job of helping people quit smoking. And part of that is, at the beginning, is they have them take a puff out of their cigarette, and they ask them, well, how does it taste? How do you feel? And many times, by asking that question, they think, this actually really does taste like crap. What am I doing? But the act of asking and beginning to answer the question gets you into a problem-solving mode in your mind, rather than I'm in the middle of a bunch of crap type of mode in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll share, Ken, one thing is Please. That if listeners out there and they're thinking about, how do I want things to be? What do I desire? What I'd highly encourage them to do is, this isn't the time to think, maybe in their realistic or logical manner, like, hey, I'm in a mediocre relationship, in the workshops, I mean, they truly have a difficult time desiring or even imagining a relationship that's flourishing. So you got to go through, and you go through some exercises to be able to get there. But I encourage people is don't, just try to put your maybe quote logical thoughts aside and just, what do you desire? Even though you don't think you can get there, what do you desire? If you haven't exercised in 5 years, you can still desire to be fit, and tactical ready, for that tough job that you're doing. And the other thing is just, I encourage people, be kind to yourself, we, love ourselves, be kind to ourselves. We generally live in an all or nothing culture. I'm all in 100%, got to be perfect, or I say, screw it, and it's like, we can reframe the way we look at some things. Because I'll share one last story on this piece where I'm talking about all or nothing cultures. That I had a firefighter. He goes, I'm big into trend lines. And he goes, after your workshop, I decided I was going to exercise 3 times a week. He goes, hey, Doc, he goes, man, first week I did 3 times. Second week, I only did twice. And the third week I got busier, and I went, and I said, you mean you shifted your priorities? Okay. But, he goes, I only did 1. He goes, 4th week came around. I said, 3, 2, 1. I said, screw it, all or nothing. And I go, man, I see what you mean. I go, but maybe we could reframe the way you're looking at that data. I go, you saw 3, 2, 1 and said, screw it. I see 3, 2, 1. That's 6 times you exercised in a 3-week period. What'd you do the previous 3 weeks? He goes, 0. Like, wow, look at that. Look at that growth, 0 to 6. I go, so of course the point is, let's be kind to ourselves. Let's look for some incremental improvements. Let's not look for perfection.
As I try to tell myself, just because we screwed up yesterday, we don't have to screw up today. It's a whole new day.
That is absolutely true. That is so true.
So I literally could talk to you for that jokingly 2 hours that you mentioned that we would be here. But I do want to wrap it up, let you do something just as important as talking to me. But the last question I have for you is, how can our audience find you out there? They want you to come in and do a session. They want to go to your online classes, or they just simply want to buy your book and get a piece of your knowledge and wisdom. How can people find a Dr. Donnie Hutchinson out there?
Well, if you Google that, you should find me. It should be there. But my website is DonnieHutchinson.com. So it's IE as in Donnie. And but yeah, that you find everything there truly is on the website. But I'd also be happy to connect with folks on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all kinds of different things.
MySpace,
do all the social media stuff. But and the other thing is, I throw out there for folks, if there's anyone out there, and if you're struggling and you need someone to talk to, give me a call. I'd be happy to talk to you. If I'm not the resource, I will help you find a resource. We're all in this together, and we all can help each other, and that's the whole goal. I don't want to see anyone life spiral out of control. Let's get a handle on it, and through the self-care and prioritizing some family, boy, does that really shore up things for our tough careers that they're out there doing. So I appreciate you asking me that. But the website, DonnieHutchinson.com, would be a great place to start.
Awesome. And I could tell my audience that Dr. Donnie is very easy to find. I found him, and I was very, very pleased that he was willing to come on this show. Great conversation and great insight. Thank you so much, Dr. Donnie.
Oh, absolutely, Ken. I appreciate it, and I enjoyed it. Great meeting you.
Awesome. Great meeting you too. And thank you to all of you who have either watched or listened to this episode of Public Safety Talk Radio. And we'll be back with you next week with another great guest.
Public Safety Talk Radio is produced by the POCUA. The POCUA is a consortium of financial institutions serving law enforcement as well as other first responders and public safety professionals. To learn more about our association and to find one of our credit unions or service providers near you, go to www.policecreditunions.com. And always remember, if you aren't working with one of our POCUA credit unions, you're just banking with an institution that just so happens to serve first responders. As a public safety professional, you and your family deserve better. Find a POCUA credit union today.